Hello, class. We're going to be working on business ownership, and this is one of the three chapters that we'll be working on in this module, and it's form of business ownership and organization. And this is going to be a fun chapter, I have to say, because it's so much information is packed, and you never can get enough of it because it's so informative. And many individuals, yourself may be included in this, who want at some point to start your own business. And having the mechanics in your mind and knowing what to expect makes this process easier. Plus, it takes the mystery away from setting up your own business, knowing that in this country you can do so much. So that being said, let's get started. We're going to proceed as we have been in the past, going over the objectives. I'm going to lay them all out since I'm in a presentation mode, and we'll get through these. It's a little offline, but I think you got it. We're going to learn, if you once you read the chapter and we go through this module thoroughly, you'll know how to discuss why most businesses are small. I mean, it's the best thing out there, and I think it's the very thing that keeps this economy in this nation afloat. The small businesses, these large businesses are fine and they're wonderful. I mean, the federal government has over 1 million employees. State governments in general have over 100,000 employees. But at the end of the day, it's these small mom and pop shops that actually employ everybody. I mean, it's just a great thing to know that small businesses are on the move and they're on the rise, and they are the most successful in keeping our economy stable. But they're most likely hard hit when they fail, which is why we're going to discuss why small businesses do fail, and features of an successful business plan, your roadmap to success in your business. We're going to identify some assistance that's available for small businesses, and we're going to explain franchising. On a side note, we will have someone come in and discuss their process for starting a business, what they had to go through to start a business, and just to encourage you to find out what your niche is and what you want to offer to the world, and maybe you will get something for it. Maybe you'll have a successful business. Maybe you'll be like the Facebook, like Mark Zuckerberg, and be successful just by connecting people together. You never know. But anyway, as we go on, we're gonna outline the forms of private business ownership, and we're gonna discuss the public and collective ownership of business, and that means whether it be a private organization, meaning owned by some individuals who are um, investors or people who want to work together and form a partnership of such, or a collective, meaning some sort of public company that solicits ownership through stock purchase, etc. We're going to talk about how to organize a corporation and actually what it is. Most of you may know. And then we're going to explain what happens when businesses come together and they collaborate. They form alliances, they form subsidiaries, and so forth. Okay, so let's get started. Why businesses are small. 90% of the firms with employees have fewer than 20. That's a true statement. I mean, it's just these small, micro-sized businesses that do so much. And people always say big is always better. I have to say, in terms of business in this country, smaller the better. Your expenses are smaller. But you can also make a big impact. So small companies make a big impact because you put them together and they're just awesome. Um, 98% have fewer than 100 employees. More than 20 million people earn income without employees. Now that's just a business where they're earning money on their own, very similar to a small shop like a sole proprietor. Businesses generate 80% of the new jobs over the past decade. And because we have just gotten through a very terrible recession and we're still in the process of recovery, we have not fully recovered from the recession. Small businesses were hit very, very bad. Many people lost their jobs, and it was really at the small business level, and then it rose up to larger businesses and also to governments. So no one's exempt to a recession. It's just that small businesses are always the first line of attack when things go wrong. Um, Small businesses generally the launching pad. Yes, if you want to start a business, it's going to be just you for the most part, and it's going to be very small, and you think that you probably can't really do anything because you're so small, but that is not true. This is an opportunity for many minorities as well as others who will have the opportunity to make something big from their own um, venture. So what is a small business? Small business is a firm that is independently owned and is not dominant in its field. It doesn't matter what the industry that business is. It just says that it's a small, independently owned company. It doesn't say it has to be a corporation. It doesn't say it has to be a small a partnership or a sole proprietor. It just says it's small and it does not dominate its field. And there are classifications of the different industries that would technically uh, categorize a small business. Now, obviously, a manufacturing company, you're gonna need your manufacturing. You have a assembly line of such. 500 workers or less would consider you in that case a small business. Now, small businesses range from a half a million to 25 million in sales. Now, there are businesses that make less than that, but when you're talking about on the scale of weightiness, half a million is pretty much a threshold. But many, many, many organizations annual revenues are far less than $500,000. So don't be misled. When you start off, you're not going to make a $500,000 when you first start your business. You may make nothing for the first year. You're just accumulating costs associated with getting the business organized. So don't let that number rattle you. It's really general and not applicable when you first get started, because most people who start their own business started with their own money, and they're not going to start off with a $500,000. Anyway, here are some technical, some typical small business ventures, and not all inclusive, but they are a small example of some of them. Now, if you may want to have a business, it has nothing to do with any of these categories. Don't let that dismay you either. This is just a really, really general broad stroke of the businesses and the small businesses that are in place in this country. Now, major industries dominated by small business. Construction is big. Construction is huge. And because of the cyclical nature of construction, they are the most volatile and the ones that sometimes fail quickest, because construction varies a lot and it's very, very up and down. Agricultural is a little bit more centralized to different areas of the country. For example, Pennsylvania has a lot of agricultural businesses simply because of small farms, and the same with the Midwest. But wholesale and trade would probably be in major cities, and small towns may have wholesale trade services that provide. Also, you have retail and you have services, but these are the percentages of these organizations that have fewer than 500 employees, which make them very small. Many businesses start off as home based. Why? Because it's cheap. You have no rent. You have control of your business. It's completely private. And it is a huge part of the small businesses within the United States. 52% of those small businesses are home based, or an equivalent of 16 million. It's great for control of your personal time, but it does interfere. And everybody knows this. Startup costs and operating expenses are low, if not zero. Depending on what you have currently in your home office, you may not have to spend a dime to get your business set up, because you may have a computer already. You may have paper and pen. You may have all the little necessary things that you need to get started, and you may have little or nothing to start off. Just going out there and talking to people and seeing if they want to buy your service or buy your product. But the contributions of small businesses is huge. They are the trigger for new jobs in this economy, and everything that we've gone through in the past 7 years is related. They all have been dealing with recognize the importance of small business. They are huge, huge part of our economy, and they are not to be discounted. So please, guys, if you're thinking about starting a business, do so. I think it's the great thing you could ever do. Whether you have a successful business or not is irrelevant. You go out there with your vision and start something new. This country is very, very favorable to small business, because they know that small business is the backbone of the economy. But the downside to a small business, they often fail. Why? We'll talk about that too. And look at the statistics here. You see, within 2 to 10 years, a lot of the small businesses do fail. I don't see that as a bad thing. I see that as a thing of people can go out there and try their best and fail, and they may fail several times. Many successful business owners can tell you, I'm successful because I failed 15 times, but you don't see the 15 failures, you just see the success. So don't let this cause you to be afraid. Small businesses have a tremendous amount of obstacles to overcome, because they have a huge issue with regard to competitors. That's a big deal. Cash flow is another big deal that small businesses seem to succumb. But if you can overcome competition and you can manage your cash flow, you have every chance of being successful, even if you're micro size. Well, we know management may be an issue of why they fail, may not have financing. One of the things that I like about the gentleman that's coming in is his business is completely financed within. He does not have loans. He does not have investor capitalists coming in and telling him how to run the company. The company moves slow. The company is growing slowly, but it's growing progressively. And a lot of times companies fail because they depend on financing to get through. Well, one of the things that I see is you got to be very careful about when you try to get financing. You may have to get a loan. Do you want to incur debt? Do you want creditors to have to come after you for your assets if you want to get financing? Management shortcomings is just individuals coming together, but they don't have all the answers. They don't have all the management tools in their arsenal, and they don't seek out the help to ensure that the decisions they make, short term and long term, work. So it's a very, very significant shortcoming when managers don't have the staff or don't have the skills. Also, government regulation can shut a business down. I have not seen that happen within my area, but it is a possibility. How do we get the small business to be successful? Give it a good chance to be successful. Barring anything in the economy, how can we do it? Well, you have to have a plan. And the plan must be written. Why? Because a written plan makes sense. It can be followed. It can be a roadmap. So it's statements of your goals and methods, and it tells you what your purpose is, why you're there, what you're going to do, how you're going to do it. It discusses the vision. It analyzes everything. What makes your business different or unique? Who are your customers? Do you have competition? Have you analyzed them? What can you do to tap into that market despite intense monopolistic competition, which is very, very difficult when you're a small business? And that's the reality. Well, if you choose to grow your business, or because of the nature of the business, your personal financing is simply not enough, you may look to outside sources to get that type of financing. Obviously, friends and family can represent 6%, but really, trade credit is going to be the big one. Trade credit meaning you working with another business and they extend you 30 days to pay your bill or 60 days to pay your bill, sometimes with interest, sometimes without interest. Sometimes we use our personal credit card, which many people do that. I know one individual to this day used $100,000 and he used his credit card to create his first movie. And he made millions from that movie. So obviously it was a huge risk to his own personal credit, but it was his personal credit, no one else's. And that's a sense of gratification for many people because they feel like if it goes under, it's all me, it's on me. And that's generally what entrepreneurs like to do. They take the risk, and they are good at that. But you can also use your car and your home and sort of other things to finance your small business. But that is an issue that you must discuss with an accountant because you got to be sure that this is the right thing to do. And getting financing is a very major commitment, and you need to know what you're doing. The SBA obviously allows you to work with different banks to get loans, and it's all about financing. They want to help small business. They know the importance of small business, and they know small business is going to make or break the economy. So they go a long way in helping you. And there are a number of businesses, small banks that are specific to small businesses, and they know the limitations that small businesses have. They don't have a lot of money. They don't have a lot of tenure. They don't have a lot of years experience out there in the workforce. And they come in with a significant disadvantage. So what the SBA does is provide some kind of guarantee so that the lenders know that if this company goes under, I still have my money back. And that's important. That's why SBA is a very large part of helping small businesses be successful. And depending on if it's a manufacturing firm or some other firm that you're creating that requires a tremendous amount of cash inflow, even before you make the first sale, you're gonna need a flow of cash all the time, and a long a line of credit or some kind of bank loan is going to be the only way that's going to make it. And it depends on the business, but some businesses really need influx of cash all the time to keep it running, and then they make the revenues. But there are other areas where you can get, specialized assistance and government contracts and etc. But again, depending on what you're trying to do, you may very well just stick it really small and very, very, very close to your chest, and not seek out financing until you can really see that financing is going to propel you further. Taking a risk of financing is a big deal, and I think you really need to consider your options way before you make a decision to get financing, bank loans, etc., because you do have to pay these back with interest rates. A business incubator. I had one experience in my many years in the accounting field. Is one little young man, about 17 years old. Oh my goodness, I was so impressed with his work. He had a unique skill, and back in the time when he started the business, he was doing things that nobody else was doing, and he knew it. And he used that skill, and someone caught a wind of it, and they said, "I'm going to support this." So the school came in and said, "You have an office, you have use of our materials, make some money." They wrote a plan. They had about 15 customers, and with the incubator program, it allowed them to start up, it allowed them to continue, it allowed them a flow of customers, it allowed them the word and the name recognition, such that they changed from 5 to 10 customers on a regular basis to over 2,000 customers, and they were one of the many small startup companies, during that era of information technology. It was an awesome time for him, and it's an awesome time to see how businesses can come in and take a small little micro-sized business and propel them. Not looking for any money to come back, not a venture capitalist firm where you want a part of the business, but just to see how they can share resources to help small companies survive when they would not have already. You can get you can get private investors to help you and all of that. But the main thing is, when you're looking for companies to help you, you have to be very sure that you're committed to them and they're committed to you, because this is a relationship where both parties have to receive something from it. So thinking about a private investor, venture capital money, that comes with strings, which means they own a part of your business. So you have to be very careful with that, because when you start your business, one thing you want is independence. You want something that's yours, that you don't have to share. So be careful of that, and be aware of all the drawbacks, because venture capitalist firms do want ownership. They do not require the money to come back. It's not a loan, but you do have to give them part of your ownership, and you need to be aware of that. Opportunities for women and our minorities has grown incredibly. So it's the best time, I mean the absolute best time, to be a minority-owned business. And state governments cater to these minority-owned, women-owned businesses. In fact, 40% of U.S. businesses are owned by women. Number of businesses that have been owned has outpaced the growth of the U.S. businesses overall. So it's where the money is. People are actually becoming innovative. People of color, minorities, women, we're out there, and we're making an extraordinary pace in the growth of the economy, because we are now visionaries. We are visionaries. We've got a plan. We've got a vision. We know what we're going to do, and we're out there. So it's really optimistic for small businesses, and they are given a tremendous amount of support from local governments as well as the federal government, because contracts require that some part of that contract be subcontracted to small businesses, minority-owned businesses, or disadvantaged businesses. So you got a foot in the door just by legislation, which is good. And here is a good, again, by industry, the number, or the demographics, meaning the African American, Native American, Asian, and Hispanic. It's been extraordinary in the areas of services for African Americans, but in finance, African Americans and Asian as well as Hispanic are pretty even in retail. There's a big gap with Asians in finance, but there's a big gap in the retail with Asian. But also you're looking at mining, where the Native American and the Hispanic are leading the African American and the Asian. So you're seeing a tremendous amount of minority groups who are making their impact. African Americans truly are forging ahead in major ways in the service area, where Native Americans are doing specialized, unclassified type of work. So we're seeing some good things with people of color, people who are considered non-white, and I think that they are going to continue to make strides in owning their own business, and it's a good thing. It means diversity is being The diversity is great. Everything is working really well, and so business opportunities for people of color, naming Latino or Hispanic, Asian, and African Americans, it's been just phenomenal over the past 10 years. And I truly believe, because of all the support they're getting from the government and state and local governments, that this is not going to change. It's going to only get better. Franchising is an alternative. There are many franchises out there. McDonald's is one. Obviously, you have to pool your resources with other individuals because a franchise agreement is extremely expensive, but it is an alternative. It means that you don't have to start from scratch. You start with a company that's already established, using um, their tools, their name, their products, and it is an agreement that you produce and you a good or services with a lot of support. And it's just an alternative. It's not everybody wants to be a franchise, but be a part of a franchise. But it is an opportunity that you can make a tremendous amount of money. These are it's the categories of the most, I would say, the fastest growing in the industry. Obviously, fitness and weight loss, and kids and seniors and technology. But that is not the only. We have franchisee agreements with let's see, Zips is one. Zips is a $1.99 um, laundry or dry cleaning establishment. But again, franchises make up a whopping 50% of retail sales, over 700,000 of businesses, and over 18 million jobs. So it's nothing to sneeze at. They pay out 500 billion in payroll, and they make over 2 trillion in sales. So franchising is a big opportunity for those who are willing to assume someone else's vision and carry it out for profit. Obviously, they got a prior performance record. They are recognizable. They have a proven business model. Their program is tested, and they save through volume purchases. It's an extraordinary opportunity for many people to make a tremendous amount of money and not have to put a lot into it in terms of getting it set to have a performance record, establishing a brand, and having a model that's already been tested. But the disadvantage is you've got to pay royalties and franchise fees. And again, it's a lot of restrictions, very, very tightly controlled. But many people do venture out and make a tremendous amount of money. So franchising is an excellent opportunity and an option for individuals. So this is our little pie showing the type of business organizations currently. 72% are sole proprietorships. Sometimes those sole proprietorships do branch off and become partnerships or corporations, depending on how big and how many people that they can, if they decide to expand their business because of they want more talent and skills to help them carry out their mission or carry out their goals. But 72% of sole proprietorships, meaning one owner. Proprietor means owner, and sole means one. Corporations are 19%, and partnerships are only 9%. This table is just showing you the types of ownership and the advantages among them. Know this, because I think it's important once you decide, or if you decide to own your own business, the proper ownership structure is an important consideration. Needless to say, there are advantages to all three, but some of them, depending on what you're trying to do, may be more favorable for you than the other, and you need to consider that. So you need to make certain that whatever structure you decide, you have your financial situation is clear. You know your skills and your limitations. You know the styles and capabilities, and you want to know how to manage that exposure to liability. So you need to answer these questions. Depending on these answers, it may very well tell you or lead you to the ownership structure that you need. There are corporations, and the corporations basically have it's a separate legal entity. It is a legal entity. Like you and me, I'm a legal entity. I'm a person, and I'm a legal entity. So is a corporation. And corporations are either a foreign or domestic or alien. Foreign means if I'm in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and I'm incorporated in Maryland, I am a foreign corporation. But if I am a corporation incorporated in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and working in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, or sales in Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, I am a domestic corporation. An alien corporation is a corporation outside of the country or outside outside the country. And generally speaking, foreign corporations have to pay fees, but you need to know the type of organization you want to establish. You need to know the address. You need to have some information on the, the stocks or the kind of financial capital. You need to be able to address the have an address for the office where it can be registered. Some of these particulars that you'll need. But in the end of the day, an S corporation, a limited liability companies are corporations, employee-owned corporations, and not-for-profit are just a name of a different types of corporations. Water systems and turnback authority. Public water companies. They are corporations, but they're publicly owned, meaning the state or some local agency will monitor, operate that organization. And then customer owned business are ownership of production or storage or transportation. They're more like a cooperative, and these are people coming together, collectively owning, working a particular type of organization. I don't see many of those in this era, but that exists. That type of organization does exist. Now, when you manage, this is just giving you the type of leadership in a corporation. We'll talk about all those details later, but you have this supervisory management, middle management, top management, board, and stock. And as you go up, you see the number, the box gets smaller simply because there are less individuals in that role. A stockholder is a person who acquires stock in exchange for a part of ownership. And there are two different types, as you can see here. The board is elected by the stockholders to oversee. They are not employees, but they are overseeing. They manage what types of, how the organization will be structured, what types of things, policies, how to pay management and owners, or how to pay management. They approve dividend payments, etc. Corporate managers, they make decisions by day. These are daily operations, and they are generally employees, these corporate officers. Now, if companies decide to come together because they have, they want to minimize the competition, but they also have certain skill sets that work best together. So they decide, well, let's come together and form a merger. Mergers can be vertical, horizontal, and conglomerate, meaning they could be two organizations with the same type of service, or two different organizations that complement each other, or two separate individual organizations that have no relationship whatsoever coming together. But either way, they join forces. The acquisition, where one just comes in and buys another company. Either they call it a subsidiary or they absorb it in its own entity. And that sometimes is mainly the way organizations get bigger. Not necessarily because they grow so much, but because they may acquire other companies and smush them all together into one organization. Joint ventures is more of a partnership between companies for a specific purpose. They may come together for just one reason or one type of thing they're trying to accomplish together. And they feel that we do it together, we'll be more successful than doing it separately. And that is also an issue of business ownership. This chapter is probably the most fun. I would suggest you take the time to understand the terminology here. There are a lot of new terms here. They're not complicated, but business startup and how to start a business is really the crust of everything that we're going to be doing, because we're in business. We want to be able to have some kind of understanding of how business gets started, why businesses fail, what makes them tick, how do they get finances they need it, and whether the structure of the organization, whether it be a sole proprietor, partnership, or corporation, is the best way for them, and other finite details. Thank you very much for listening, and I will talk to you soon.